Thank you so much. It is great to be back in Ohio. Hello, Toledo. Let's hear it for Sergeant Ryan Mack. Thank you so much. I just watched on TV what you just watched on that TV. We just watched what leadership looks like. I'm so proud to be here today. I'm so proud to stand with Governor Mitt Romney because, as you just saw, on November the 6th, we put a leader in the White House and we get our country back on the right track when we elect Mitt Romney. I want to thank Ryan for that great introduction. I want to thank Bob Latta, a great congressman, for helping Ryan and for helping bring Ryan into his office to help other veterans. But most importantly, I want to thank Ryan for putting his life on the line for our freedom. And I want to thank all those veterans who are here who have done this for us. Thank you for your service to our country. Look at this. It is because of them, these men and women, that we're here in peace, in democracy, viewing our opinions, about to cast our votes. We've got a choice to make. This is a serious choice. This is not an ordinary election. We're not just deciding who's going to be the next president for 4 more years. We are deciding the meaning of America. We are deciding what kind of people we are going to be and what kind of country we are going to have for an entire generation. That's what this election's all about. I think I see a seat right there, so please have a seat. I don't want to make you stand the whole time. There, isn't that a little more comfortable? There. It's not just the next 4 years, it's the next generation. Here is what the leader you just saw, Mitt Romney, and I are going to do. We are here not to simply ask for your vote, but we are here to earn your support. We want to deserve this victory. We want to make sure that come November the 6th, we have the moral authority and the obligation given to us by the people of this country to fix America's problems, to make us strong again, because not only do we believe in America, we believe in Americans. And by earning your support, by winning Ohio, you will help us get this country back on the right track. When President Obama came in 4 years ago, he inherited a tough situation. No two ways about that. Problem is, he didn't make things better. 23 million Americans today are struggling to find work. 5.5 million Americans who used to try to find work gave up trying. We don't even count these people anymore. That's 5.5 million Americans that had a job, that gave up trying to look for a job, that our government doesn't even count anymore. If we actually counted these people, our unemployment rate would be 11%. 15% of our fellow citizens, 15% of the men and women in this nation, of the children in this nation, are living in poverty today. It's the highest rate in a generation. The economy is barely growing. It's growing slower this year than it grew last year, which grew slower than the year before that. The president has no new ideas. He doesn't know how to grow this economy. Mitt Romney knows how to grow the economy because Mitt Romney has the experience, because he knows how to create jobs because he's done it before. This is a man with the knowledge, the experience, and the skills to create jobs. As Governor Romney just said, we cannot afford 4 more years like the last 4 years. We need to get America back on track. And where that is so clear is in American leadership. You just heard it right here. The president is not offering the kind of spirited and principled leadership we need to create jobs here at home or to keep us safe. And so, because President Obama does not have a good record to run on, he has resorted to trying to distort ours. Lately, he talks about what Bob Latta and I did in the House. He's mischaracterizing our support for veterans. Let me make one thing very clear. In the House budget that we drafted and that we passed, we fully met and exceeded the president's request for veterans funding by $270 million. That means we saw a commitment, a promise that our government has made to our veterans. We didn't think the presidents went far enough, and we expanded it because we know this is a promise that must be kept. These people put their lives on our line, and in a Romney administration, we will always keep our promise and our commitment to our veterans. If you go home after this and turn on your TV, you will likely see the failures of the Obama foreign policy unfolding before our eyes. You see, if you look around the world, what we are witnessing is the unraveling of the Obama foreign policy. 4 Americans were murdered in a terrorist attack in Benghazi. The point is, in a Romney administration, when we know that we are clearly attacked by terrorists, we won't be afraid to say what it is. If terrorists attack us, we will say we had a terrorist attack, and more importantly, we will do what it's necessary to prevent that from happening by having a strong military, by making sure that our adversaries do not test us, do not think that we are weak and in retreat. This was not simply an isolated incident, but indicative of a broader failure. Iran's closer to a nuclear weapon. The Middle East is in turmoil. Nearly 24 nations we witnessed on our television screens were burning our flags in protests in riots. You see, if we project weakness abroad, our adversaries are that much more willing to test us, to question our resolve. And our allies are more hesitant to trust us. We can't afford to put more daylight between ourselves and our allies like Israel. We can't afford to equivocate when dissidents are taking to the street, arguing and fighting for peace against the tyrannical dictators that are crushing them. We can't afford to call Bashar Assad a reformer, say he has to go, and then watch 20 months go by while he slaughters tens of thousands of his people. The reason we can't afford this is because if we want peace here at home in America, we need to have a strong military. And we can't afford these devastating defense cuts that the president is promising. We will reverse this. If you take all of these defense cuts that are coming due, that could lead to as many as 200,000 of our troops leaving the military. Think about this for a minute. We all know how much our Guard and reserves have been stretched. A very good buddy of mine just shipped off to Afghanistan a couple of weeks ago. Lots of our friends, lots of our families, lots of people in our communities have been called up. If we allow these devastating defense cuts to go through, that stretches them even further. That projects the perception that we are a superpower in retreat. That shrinks our Navy to the smallest Navy since 1916. We are not going to let that happen, because we know that if we have a strong military abroad, we know that if our adversaries know that we are the unquestionably strongest military in the world, that makes us safer here at home. We will have peace through strength in a Romney-Ryan administration and make sure that our military has what they need to do their jobs. And we will also make sure that when we see nations like Iran racing toward nuclear capability, that we will not cancel missile defense. That we will make sure that we have a missile defense system to protect ourselves and our allies from these emerging threats. Now let's talk about right here at home. Let's talk about where we stand in the choice we have to make. You see, the economy is doing so poorly not because the Obama economic agenda was stopped. The economy is doing so poorly because the Obama economic agenda was passed. Let's not forget that when President Obama was elected, he came in with large majorities where his party was in total control of Washington. He was able to pass virtually everything on his agenda. And now we're seeing the consequences. He passed this major stimulus package. Remember that one? If we could just borrow $831 billion from countries like China, spend it on our friends and our cronies and our special interest groups, that would get the economy growing. They said unemployment would never reach 8%. It had been above 8% for 43 months. They said that if we just spent all this money on green pork, it'd create 5 million new green jobs. And then when they box-checked that one, the president turned his attention for over a year on jamming through, with one-party control, a government takeover of health care. The Chamber of Commerce recently surveyed all their members. 75% of small businesses say they're less likely to hire because of Obamacare. When we needed the president to focus on jobs and better take-home pay and getting people to work and getting people out of poverty, he turned his attention to this other agenda. Take a look at the energy policy we have, or don't have. We've got so much energy in this country. We have so many new technologies to harness that energy in this country, and the president is standing in the way of it. We need to unlock the energy we have in this country to create jobs, to get manufacturing jobs, and to get people back to work. Visualize day one when our President Romney takes over. Among the things that we're going to do, like stop this administration's assault on our religious liberties, like roll back the dangerous precepts of Obamacare, we will approve the Keystone Pipeline and get people back to work and get that oil in this country. Think of the jobs right there. Think of the pipe fitters, the manufacturers. We have all of these resources in our own continent, and he wants them to go to China. Look, we have a very specific, detailed plan to make us energy independent by North America by the end of the decade, and we can achieve that. That's energy security, lower prices. We will send less of our money to countries that don't like us. It's a good idea. And when you look at the president's agenda on just this issue, regulating coal jobs out of existence, preventing us from tapping our resources, making our prices higher, let's never forget that he has this national energy tax that he is seeking to impose on us with the explicit goal of making our energy prices more expensive. All that does is take away our take-home pay and shift our jobs overseas and make our manufacturers less competitive. Take a look at regulations. The feverish pace of regulations coming out of this administration costs our economy $1.75 trillion a year. These new regulations cost us jobs. This is not what a real recovery looks like. We cannot afford 4 more years like the last 4 years, because if we continue these policies, the last 4 years will look like good years. You see, again, if you go home and turn on your TV, if you want to see what these policies look like carried out further, take a look at Europe. Look at what they are experiencing. It's not a new trend or problem. When you have decades of politicians from both political parties in this country who make lots of empty promises to people to get elected, like they did in Europe, if you keep borrowing and spending, if you keep taxing and regulating, if you keep money printing, like our government is doing today, then you will guarantee that those empty promises become broken promises. And you have a debt crisis. Think about it this way. I remember 2008, almost like it was yesterday, when we had that economic crash. I remember when the housing bubble burst. We knew there were problems. A lot of us tried to fix Fannie and Freddie, but we were thwarted by people like Joe Biden and Barack Obama in the Senate. But we did not know exactly how this was going to turn out. That caught us by surprise. When that crash happened in 2008, millions of jobs were lost. Trillions in wealth was vanished. The savings portfolios of our seniors were diminished. It caught us by surprise. Let me ask you this question. What if your president, your congressman, or your senator saw it coming in advance? What if they knew this was going to happen? What if they knew why it was going to happen? What if they knew approximately when it was going to happen? And what if they knew what they needed to do to stop it from happening and they had the time to stop it, but they decided, I'm not going to do it because it might hurt my reelection? What would you think of them? That's exactly where we are today. This coming debt crisis is the most predictable economic crisis we've ever had in this country. And yet, we have a president who has chosen to do nothing to fix this problem, who has waited for alternatives to be offered by those of us in the House, by Mitt Romney, and then simply attack those alternatives while offering no credible solution in its return. That is not leadership. That's what politicians do. And on November the 6th, we are going to elect a leader, Mitt Romney, to deal with this problem and to take on this debt crisis before it gets out of our control. It's a very simple idea. It's very simple. We can't keep spending money we just don't have. If we put the key reforms in place, if we run to these problems instead of running from these problems, we can solve these problems on our terms as a country. You see, in Europe, they waited too long. They kicked the can down the road. They came up with excuses. They didn't lead. And now, they're slashing the health and retirement benefits of their current retirees. They're raising taxes, entering another recession, and the youth unemployment rate in Europe-wide is over 20%. In Spain and Greece, it's over 50%. Today in America, 50%, over 50% of our recent college graduates either are not working in the field that they studied or are working at all. What we are witnessing is a failure of leadership. But what we have is still a window of opportunity to get this right. And what we will get is a leader who knows this. Let's remember one thing. We are in a veterans-owned business right now. This is a fantastic thing. This is a man who served our country in the United States Marine Corps, came home with distinction and honor, and started a business, creates jobs, helps people, and he built his business. The government didn't do that for him. You see, when our president racks up $5 trillion in debt in one presidency, in one term, more debt accumulated than any prior president, almost more debt, public debt accumulated than all prior presidents combined. When we keep going down that path, more borrowing, more spending, more taxing, more regulating, more money printing, we make it harder for these businesses to survive. We make it harder for businesses to be created. We have to remember that most of our jobs come from small businesses. We have to remember that we're competing in a global economy. You know, overseas, where I come from means Lake Superior. The Canadians just lowered their taxes on all their businesses to 15%. President Obama is promising, he already passed the law to do this, he's promising that if he's reelected, the top tax rate on our successful small businesses goes to above 40%. In the developed world, across the industrialized world, the average tax rate on businesses is 25%. Most of our manufacturers pay their taxes as individuals, as people. 8 out of 10 manufacturers, 8 out of 10 businesses in America pay their taxes as individuals. And we're going to tax them over 40% when they got to compete with China, with India, with Canada at much lower tax rates. And the rub of it all is this one tax increase, it doesn't even pay for 10% of the president's proposed deficit spending increases. This idea that we should take more from families, take more from small businesses to spend in Washington on cronies and special interests has not worked. It will not work. And when we replace it by championing small businesses, we will get people back to work. By the way, I represent the western part of the western shoreline of Lake Michigan. We've got good perch there, and we've got some salmon, but you've got the best walleye out here in Lake Erie. I got to tell you that. They're big. Somebody just said, "Go Packers." Anybody want to amen that here? Yeah. We had a rough day yesterday. Sorry about that. Now, take a look at the moment we are in. What are we missing? We're missing leadership. What do we have? We have huge problems. But our giant problems today are still fixable. They're not out of our control. But we do 4 more years like the last 4 years, and these problems begin to get out of our control. We have a moral obligation to save the American dream for our children and our grandchildren, to give them a debt-free nation. We have a moral obligation to make sure that the least among us have the kinds of opportunities that has been the promise of America. We have a moral obligation to get back to the American idea of being able to pursue your dreams, of having a dynamic, pro-growth economy that produces opportunity and upward mobility. But we need leadership to do this. Look at Mitt Romney's life. Look at this man. You see, the president cannot run on this broken record. He cannot run on his broken promises. So he has no choice but to try and distort, to try and distract and divide people to try and win this election by default. If you take a look at what Mitt Romney has done in his life, this is a man of commitment. This is a man of achievement. This is a man of skills and principles that is the kind of man we need right now. When the Olympics were failing, when the Olympics were going down the tubes, remember all the waste and the abuse and the scandal back in the late 90s? Sounds kind of familiar these days, doesn't it? What did they do? They called this guy in Boston. They asked him to leave his business, move to Salt Lake, and revive the Olympics to serve his country. And that's exactly what Mitt Romney said he would do, and that's exactly what he did. This is a person who built a business, stayed with it for 25 years, helped create tens of thousands of jobs. Businesses that we know of today, like Sports Authority, Bright Horizons, Staples. We have a jobs crisis today. Wouldn't it be nice to have a proven job creator in the White House? And this is a man who, as a Republican of a Democratic state, ran for governor saying, I will reach across the aisle and work with Democrats. I won't compromise my principles, but I will find common ground, and I will balance the budget without raising taxes. And guess what? That's exactly what he did each and every year. That's the kind of leadership we need in the White House today. It's not enough for us to simply complain or to tout our resumes. We're offering ideas. We owe each and every one of us solutions. That's what our 5-point plan for a stronger middle class is all about. That's what our energy policy for energy independence in North America by 2020 is all about. That's what our job training policy is all about. Look, I just flew in from Janesville, Wisconsin, my home. I felt like when we took off, I felt like we just did 2 circles and came back down because this looks just like where I come from. Toledo and Janesville have a lot in common. We're factory towns. We've lost factories. We need them back. We need jobs. We need America to be competitive. We need job creation. That's what this plan is all about. And by the way, we can all think of people we know, neighbors, friends, and relatives who lost their jobs at one of our core industries and who are in between jobs. They don't have the skills to get the kind of job that they want for the 21st century, to get the career that they need to provide for their families, to have more take-home pay, more security. We need to get them the job training skills that so they can get these kinds of jobs. We need to fix our education system so we're not trapping kids in failing schools, and we get these people in their 40s and their 50s and their 60s the skills they need to get the work they want so they can get good take-home pay. And we need to make sure that in this world where 95% of the consumers live outside this country, that those countries that trade with us trade fairly with our country. If we're on a level playing field, we win. We create jobs. We make more things and sell them overseas, but we need leaders who make sure that we're on that level playing field. We need to balance the budget. We need to cut spending. And we need to make sure that we don't sit in Washington and try picking winners and losers. That's what they've been doing for years. It doesn't work. Republicans tried this too. We need to acknowledge that as well. You see, when we lower tax rates across the board, by closing loopholes primarily for the well-to-do, all we're saying is, it's your money in the first place. You keep more of it because that's your money. You can have more for your family. You can have more for your business. That creates jobs. That creates more take-home pay. That creates economic growth. That grows the economy. That gets prosperity. That gets people back to work. It's right within our reach. Real reforms for a real recovery with proven pro-growth solutions that we know will create jobs and more take-home pay. We'll get people out of poverty, back into the middle class. We'll grow opportunity if we get the policies right. It's right there for our taking. Ohio is critical. But it's not just about the next 4 years. It's not just about getting people back to work. This is about the kind of country we leave our children. This is about the idea of this country. And by the way, America, it's not just a country with a flag. It's not just Toledo or Janesville. It's an idea. It's the only country founded on an idea. That idea is so precious. Thomas Jefferson wrote it in the Declaration of Independence. It can't be topped. Our rights come from nature and nature's God, not from government. That's what we are. That's what makes us great. That's the idea that gave us these principles that made us so exceptional. That's the idea from which our principles flow. Liberty, freedom, free enterprise, self-determination, government by consent of the governed. The goal and role of government is to protect our natural rights, to promote equality of opportunity so we can make the most of our lives. The goal and role of government is not as President Obama would have you believe it. where the government regulates, defines, and rations our rights to try and equalize the results of our lives. That's what Europe has. That doesn't end so well. We can get this back. These ideals and these principles were brought to us by our founders, and each and every generation of veterans secured it for us, and we are in their gratitude. We owe them a debt of our gratitude, and we thank our veterans for preserving this for us. We can do this. With the right leadership, we can guarantee the promise of those critical programs like Medicare and Social Security. With the right leadership, we can replace Obamacare with the real kinds of health care solutions that put patients in charge of their health care, not distant government bureaucrats. With the right solutions, we can get American-made energy for American jobs and lower prices and better take-home pay. With the right leadership, we can get people back to work and out of poverty and back on the path to prosperity. With the right leadership, we can have a military whose strength is second to none and who we are proud of and who our adversaries will not think about testing us ever again. And our allies will know that they can trust our resolve. Winston Churchill probably said it best. The Americans can be counted upon to do the right thing, but only after they've exhausted all the other possibilities. You sort of feel like that's the moment we were in, don't you? Look, here is what Mitt Romney and I are pledging to you, our fellow citizens. We are not going to duck these tough issues and kick the can down the road. We're going to lead. And we're not going to spend the next 4 years blaming other people. We're going to take responsibility. And to our fellow veterans, to our veterans, not our fellow, to our veterans, we will honor you, and we will make sure that we will not transform our country into something it was never intended to be. We will not try to transform or replace our founding principles. We will reapply our founding principles that you fought so hard to secure, to keep, and maintain. We can do this. We can get this country on the right track. We can have a strong military. We can balance our budget. We can get people back to work. We need leadership. You saw it on the TV. Mitt Romney's the man for that. Thank you so much, Toledo. Thank you so much for Ohio. You mean the difference here. Thank you, everybody, and God bless. Let's get this done.